Well, hello, that's me again. Today is Tuesday. It is July 9th, 2024. And let's get to a little bit back to my previous video about hanging in shame, where we're talking about the situation with the, well, people who are obviously products of the Western militaries. And many people in comments actually say read this and read that. Let me put it this way. One of the posters, and I really appreciate this, he actually sent me to this book. And how to put it, I saw this book many times. It's obviously Nick Chur's Kill Anything That Moves. And this is about the fact that when I mentioned last time the My Lai village massacre, that he said, go and read this book, Kill Anything That Moves, The Real American War in Vietnam. And this is the book about the actually consistent atrocities. And that My Lai massacre, they think that were isolated incident, while in reality this was all over the place. Well, I really appreciate this. And yes, this is the book which I suggest Americans to read very much. Why I am I already know what is in this book, as well as in many other books which, for example, expose the crimes against humanity and war crimes about the US Army in Vietnam, as one example. Don't forget where I am from. I am from the Soviet Union. And Soviet Union, you can say whatever you want about the propaganda, while being definitely a very strong supporter of Vietnam during this war. It was very well known fact, and in fact it was elaborated extensively, including through the military, civilian institutions, let alone in military institutions, where I attended, for example, and we knew that all along, without any reference to, declassified documents or something. We knew about the atrocity on the mass scale from Vietnamese themselves, who of course remain a very important strategic partner of Russia today, but in Soviet Union they were just allies, plain and simple. And Russians didn't view them as proxies merely. No, it wasn't a proxy war. It was indeed driven by the humanistic and actually to a degree ideological considerations of the what you will call proletarian internationalism. So whatever Nick Turse or any other author in the United States or elsewhere in the West would go out and get into those, classified documents and say, oh my God, there were many My Lais, there were tens, dozens of those My Lais. We knew it. We knew it because it was exposed. The Vietnamese obviously providing this information to Soviet Union. We communicated. We had a very large group of the Vietnamese naval officers being prepared in our naval academy, and we spoke to them many times. I mean, many of them were sons of people who have been killed in one of the atrocities which were committed similar to Lieutenant Kelly and My Lai. There were other places. So when people say this, and I applaud them for suggesting this, but keep in mind, for example, I know about it, and we knew about it way more than average Americans knew, even during the Vietnam War. As I already stated, my mom still has the comb, which was made out of the part of the wing of the B-52, which was shot down by Vietnamese. And when she was laying in late 60s in the hospital in Baku, there were many Vietnamese officers and officers and other people from Vietnam who fought in Vietnam who were treated all over the Soviet Union. I'm not even talking about the fact that, as I mentioned it before, that many Vietnamese children, completely orphaned, actually have been brought to Soviet Union, and there were lines. Our family almost adopted actually one of the Vietnamese kids. They were brought when we lived in Sevastopol. They were brought to Simferopol, and there was like lines, and people wanted to adopt, those orphaned Vietnamese kids. And so we knew it all along, and that is why when I say that people accuse me sometimes of having the corporate, alliance, so to speak, corporate unity with American military, I make no mistake. I know the record of this military, so it's not that simple. And yeah, I respect many people. Some of them are my friends who served in the U.S. military. They are my friends because they are upstanding people. So not everything was bad, but in general, yes, U.S. Army left their, I mean, horrendous record of the atrocity. Then, of course, we have now this situation. You see, I am not even going yet into the political news, but you have to understand that the Lancet wrote this piece, and this is a shocking piece. And the Lancet obviously is one of the major medical magazines in the United States and in the Britain. I don't even know them. They could be from the United States. But the point is they are definitely very reputable publication. And they published this study, which is called Counting the Dead in Gaza, Difficult but Essential. And here what it states. In recent conflicts, such indirect deaths range from 3 to 15 times the number of direct deaths. Applying a conservative estimate of 4 indirect deaths per 1 direct death to the 37,396 dead reported, it is not implausible to estimate that up to 186,000 or even more deaths could be attributable to the current conflict in Gaza. This is a genocide without any caveats, without any allowances for anything. And the United States actually stood and stands by Israel. And that's what I'm saying, that while having a very timid, very unsuccessful war record of winning anything in terms of the real wars, because the victory in war is defined by the attaining or achieving the political objectives, we have the situation that, yeah, United States and Israel are actually, brothers in crime. And this is what everybody begins to talk about now, who absolutely, doesn't push agenda or being disingenuous. And this is just the part of it. Now, let's go to furthermore a little bit to this situation. Remember what happened with Russian POWs? I'm kind of getting back to my previous video. So here it is. This is from yesterday. No, actually 2 days before, day before yesterday. And so here, a mercenary of the armed forces of Ukraine from Greece, Antonakos, nicknamed Zeus, was eliminated. A Greek mercenary who executed Russian prisoners has been eliminated. A militant nicknamed Zeus participated in at least 3 massacres. His name has been established. This is Tassos Antonakos, who has been fighting for Kiev regime since May 2023, ANA News reports. Here's the guy. He is not with us anymore, and I hope he suffered before being killed. So look at him. He is a typical, this macho BS who is really good as evidently only fighting people who are defenseless, which is primarily actually all those so-called mercenaries or volunteers from the West are doing in Ukraine. Most of them are in the barrier troops. As I already stated, they primarily shoot in the backs of the retreating Ukrainians. And again, as I mentioned last time, you look at these people and how they say, oh yeah, the guy, this Grosse, the German medic who, told about those basically atrocities and war crimes, he had been, receiving all kinds of death threats and things of this nature, because they are afraid that they are, somehow Russians will know who they are and where they are. Well, I have news for them. Russians already know who you are. They know your names, they know your addresses, they know where you're located, in what sector, because these idiots, being primarily people at the most, they are not officer material, they are all those, private sergeant type level. Not that it's not important. It is important. They have all those, tactical skills. They can shoot, they can, just mine things, they can throw grenades, they can, sit in trenches and things of this nature, but primarily they don't even understand what electronic warfare is, what are Russian capabilities in this respect, plus when you put together the human intel on the ground, the guys are known and they will be killed. Some of them will be actually, well, let's put it this way, kidnapped if you wish, and they will be brought to justice. So they have no good ending for them, all of them, including those Americans. And as the result of this, we have this situation which proves to what Russians do, and they do it really well. For example, yesterday Russia takes out 3 US-made Ukrainian missile systems. These are M270 vehicles which carry those blocks which can launch either HIMARS or ATACMS missiles, and up to 10 foreign specialists operating HIMARS were also eliminated. The defense ministry stated you can see all those videos which are already circulating all over the place, how those 3 were taken out together with the Americans who service them, all those volunteers. Wink, wink, so, and this is beginning to kind of, spin out of control for the United States and the combined West, because basically Russians already stated very clearly that will be targeted now. They're all those, advisors, American officers, or whoever will be hunted down and killed. There is no talking about anything anymore, especially after all those, people like Miller, spokesperson for State Department, speaks about that actually, yeah, these were ATACMS which, killed people on the beach in Sevastopol. Well, sure, then the people who launched those ATACMS, they will be killed. Simple as that. But then again, you have to understand who those people are. Most of those people in the State Department, on the White House, they never served a day in military uniform. They never experienced any life difficulties. They do not understand what real war is. Pentagon doesn't understand what the real war is, and so as the result you have this situation and they beginning to get the message. And one of the message, of course, was that Russia yesterday did a little bit of the how to put it, a little bit of bombing, well, not bombing, launching cruise missiles. There was a kindergarten destroyed, which is very clearly, go on the internet, it's everywhere. You can see AIM-120 AMRAAM, which is the foundation, so to speak, of this funny air defense complex NASAMS, which is operated by Americans, by the way. And yeah, that's the missile which obviously lost guidance and just hit the kindergarten. But you can see yourself all those, Russia running out of the missiles. In this particular case, in Kiev, an attack on the Artyom military plant, which was destroyed. There were 6 of them. You can see clearly these are X-101s launched from the strategic bombers. And yeah, it has nothing to do with Russians. It is all the, classic, NATO Ukrainian textbook, tactical textbook. Hide behind backs of the, civilians. Hide your air defense systems, which are utterly ineffective, inside, civilian, apartment blocks. And that's what they do. That's what they did from the get-go. But only now they're beginning to talk about it. But yeah, too late, guys. As I already stated, the reputational damage to U.S. military. Forget about the Israeli Defense Force. It's not even serious. The guys are just absolute. I have no idea. I have no respect for them whatsoever. But U.S. military, oh come on! Just let's face the situation with everything which is happening. And you can quote me. You can quote me. Refer to me. You can say to anybody, including top-notch generals or for those admirals and joint chiefs of staff. They say, call Martyanov. He will explain to you. You lost the arms race. You lost it so badly. I cannot explain to you how badly they lost. Of course, I'm not gonna go into the news about the Sentinel program, which of course is now, as was expected, dramatically over budget and will be delayed by years at best. And this is, to substitute the good old Minuteman III. But here it is. Mr. Rybkov, first deputy of the foreign minister of Russian Federation, well, he actually goes on record yesterday and says that Dialogue with the United States on arms control is impossible, Rivkov said. The dialogue between Russia and the United States on arms control is excluded. We cannot have a dialogue on arms control with a country that has officially declared its intention to inflict a strategic defeat on us, and every day is looking for ways to inflict damage on us. Well, primarily terrorism, that's what they do well. They cannot fight real war. How to make it more painful, more difficult to cope with the task facing our country. So Rivkov explains this, but there is a really menacing, so to speak, background to his statement. And this background states this: when you bargain, when you do the negotiation, especially in the terms of the military power, and especially in terms of the arms limitations, you have to come to the bargaining table with something which you can exchange. Otherwise, it's not a bargain. And that's the whole problem. I just mentioned Minuteman. We know that Columbia, a new strategic missile submarine, is delayed, and that's, of course, it's going to be carrying good old Trident D5, Trident 2 D5. So when you look at this, what the United States can possibly offer to Russia to discuss, to what? To reduce what? To reduce the obsolete nuclear arsenal, to reduce weapons which are from the 20th century primarily. And they deal with what? Russia's newest, both strategic and operational, tactical and strategic operational strike systems. United States is not even in the same league. We already established the fact, of which I was on record, that the United States will not get real hypersonic weapons in a long time. Now people openly say it's 20 years. In terms of air defense, United States is nowhere near. In terms of the tank, same. In terms of the strike systems, yeah. And so you go over this, list of those things, and say, what I'm gonna talk about to reduce what? Well, Russia will gladly reduce her legacy strategic missiles, strategic missiles, but Sarmat is not going to be touched. Hypersonic weapons, they're not going to be touched. Why? Russia have been actually cheated on so many occasions, and by combined West, and especially by the United States, and especially seeing the modus operandi of the United States today towards Russia and Russians as the terrorism, sheer, pure terrorism. So you don't negotiate with these people, and Rybkov has been very clear on this issue, and that's what I'm saying. I was saying actually for a long time. You can go to my blog and read how for years I was writing. When you talk about strategic systems, you talk about the tactical systems, or operational level things. United States has nothing to offer to bargain with. There's nothing. Literally zero. And that's the issue, which this is what many people, well, some people understand. Others cannot face the reality. And because it is hard, it is devastating for them, especially who have been brought up in all those, the degree meals from, Ivy League and, on Oxford, for example, that they are, the best, the greatest ever. They're not. Their time is up, and we can observe this now. And as the result, we can see the situation with Mr. Modi arriving to Moscow. Here's his meeting with Mr. Putin yesterday in Novo-Ogarevo, which is essentially their residence outside Moscow. And he, as he said, gratitude to President Putin for hosting me at Novo-Ogarevo this evening. Looking forward to our talks tomorrow. So they're going to be holding talks today. They are holding them. And of course, as you can see yourself, U.S. State Department, which is basically, I will have to say it later, but yeah, I never saw that collection of cowards who would sit there and wouldn't even dare to come out and say openly about what is happening, for example, in Gaza, which State Department supports there. But, here we have the United States called on Monday on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to emphasize Ukraine's territorial integrity, and we would urge India, as we do any country which engages with Russia, to make clear that any resolution to the conflict in Ukraine needs to be one that respects the UN Charter with respect to Ukraine's territorial integrity, Ukraine's sovereignty. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller told reporters. Miller said, however, that he was unaware of specific conversations with India about Modi's visit to Russia, and it's not a U.S. business to start with, so Modi came to Russia. Russia and India have huge specter of, issues to discuss, make new deals, obviously the talks energy, defense contracts, and things of this nature, and harmonization of and resolution of the issues with China within their, obviously, framework of BRICS. So yeah, the life goes on. It goes on completely in different direction, away from the U.S. touch or reach, if you wish. And that's the when you left behind in the dust, it hurts. I understand this. Believe me, it hurts me. We moved to the country. We immigrated to the country, which was it was a decent country. But of course, after 9/11, even before that, but after 9/11, it completely went off rails, which showed how insecure and how weak United States is. And you saw yourself what happened after that. And today we observe just basically formalization of those issues, including from, if you take a look at the latest armed forces of Ukraine losses, so as I already state constantly, basically what you can do when you look at these numbers, you can easily multiply them by 2. And you can use those numbers as killed and wounded as killed only. So when you look at the dynamics, Russians wipe out, as I already stated, their 1 brigade on average each day from the order of battle of armed forces of Ukraine, and the killing will continue, sadly to say this, but it is what it is. Nothing, you can do about it. I mean, United States and, NATO, they decided that they can do it, they cannot, and again, should they have read my books, should they have read my blog, they would have known this, but they don't, because this is actually what the level of the sheer professional incompetence, military, foreign policy, strategic intelligence, which doesn't really exist anymore. And Russia study field is just pathetic, really. It's just unbelievable. So, but this, some people get it, but the funniest thing, obviously, is this, that Niall Ferguson, he passes for a historian for some reason in the United States. He wrote in June 18th that Niall Ferguson, we are all Soviets now, a government with a permanent deficit and a bloated military, a bogus ideology pushed by elites, poor health among ordinary people, senescent leaders. Sounds familiar? And he's talking about that United States is more like Soviets. And then, of course, we have actually the American conservative, which goes and even actually stresses the thing that you have no idea how Soviet we really are. And they go about same old pure economic indices, not understanding that United States and its collapse is nothing like the Soviet collapse. I mean, there are some similar things which obviously are, common for any type of collapse. In the end, you end up in the really bad situation. But the point is, and this is what the primitive way of the primarily Western historians think, not all of them, but many, is that they look at those patterns, symmetries, and that they try to stick it, onto something which is familiar for them. But the problem is they do not understand why Soviet Union collapsed. None. Neither Ferguson nor whoever responds to him in this, the American conservative. Russia, whatever, historic Russia or Russian Empire, what have you, it was multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural empire, and it's simply disintegrated, especially driven by the centrifugal or centrifugal, whatever the tendencies, especially in the Middle Asia, which was Islamizing, very fast, and it's backward now. Now those people, they try to penetrate Russia as the migrants, and Russians now beginning to kick them out because they wanted freedom. Hey, have a freedom. And that's a very important thing. Obviously, the United States is along the way on this path too, by importing third world constantly, especially, just basically opening the border. But again, Soviet Union didn't open the border. It was the issue of the political elites, obviously, which have been completely impotent as those are in the United States. But this is about as far as it goes. Economically, Soviet Union, actually, I have some bad news for those people. What is happening with Russia, much of it is still based on the incredible industrial, scientific, technological heritage of the Soviet Union. But then again, trying to explain it to any kind of the so-called American historians, with some exceptions. There are some exceptions of the really competent historians. But explain it to them what Soviet Union was, they will not get it. They have no reference point. They are taught in this BS, in their, whatever, the history departments and all this confabulated history of the United States. So in this case, if they want to draw their, for example, parallels with the Soviet Union, well, I can tell you one thing. It is much worse today in the United States than it was in the Soviet Union. Obviously, the elite, cowardly and geriatric in Soviet Union precipitated the change, but there were much more, much larger set of factors which are absolutely unapplicable to the United States. So this is classic American discussion on the subject they don't know, and they use the American indices and American numbers to this. It is like trying to screw the knot, which was done in millimeter instead of the inch type of the measure. But yeah, these people continue to do this, trying in desperation figure out what is going on. We know what is going on. And if that hasn't been enough, we have now the situation with the this funny thing when one of the former NATO Bundeswehr generals, Erich Watt, he wrote the thesis on, guess what? On Clausewitz. It's becoming so nauseating when people go out, they need credentials, the PhD, they write something about Clausewitz. And he admits, though, Ukraine war is lost. Ex-military advisor to Angela Merkel speaks out. And Pascal Lotus, I applaud him. He's a good journalist. But the immediate thing he asks him up front of this journal, he says, if von Clausewitz would have lived today, what would he have said about all that? And let me tell you, he wouldn't have said anything. He would actually fail to even grasp basic things around modern world, and so he would keep silent and probably overwhelmed. And that is why, this Clausewitz thing is been long enough. I don't know how many so-called scientific work was written about him, but please, this is the 21st century, and although some points of Clausewitz about the war in general and conflict in general still apply, he is everything what they write about prescriptive so to speak strategies of him, it barely applies. It is also very funny when Erich Watt says that we lost Germany, which they did, and that Germany should become the driver of the European economy, we should become the independent. And let me show you something. This is the JP Morgan. Not that JP Morgan is any authority on this issue, because most of the economic indices in the West are, well, junk primarily. But here's a global manufacturing PMI as it is done. It was from June, as you can see yourself. And as you can see yourself from this, India and Russia drive the economic industrial development and productive economy in the world. Vietnam is there. Believe me, you will be surprised that Vietnam actually, well, they produce a lot of the consumer goods, no doubt about it. But yeah, Vietnam, Greece, I don't know anything about Greece, what is going on there. But look at this. China grows. US, yeah, sort of kind of growth. And then you can see yourself, Germany is at the bottom of this hole with the negative, well, shrinking economy. So is France, so is Czechia, so is Poland. So, well, Eurozone generally is just being crushed. And yeah, JP Morgan reflects on it. We can discuss some details or some numbers there which might not necessarily fit it, but you see yourself what is going on. And yeah, that is why when people talk about Clausewitz and Germany becoming the, the driver of economic development in what? In the industrialization? Sure. Germany definitely leads the world of killing itself, as is Europe. And that is why people say, yeah, what about Le Pen and, France? I understand it's going to hurt some French friends of mine, but France is over. I mean, it doesn't matter who comes. I mean, and French elected it. And the question is, I mean, it's not just on the, this legerdemain of the, Macronists and all those political party and those, whores from the so-called left, like Mélenchon and all other prostitutes from there. The problem is that all of them are prostitutes in France on the political top, and none of them have any idea how to save the country, which cannot be saved anymore. France is not going to exist as the classic, Gauls, white Gauls with their indigenous culture, however bad or good, but the point is they're not going to exist as the nation anymore. And yeah, they can thank themselves. They liked it. They elected Macron twice, they elected Hollande twice, or whatever it was. So Sarkozy was a great BS. He did nothing to save France because they can't. They are all losers. They are all political smooth operators. The only thing they can know how to do is how to stay elected, period. They have no statesmanship qualities. And actually, Combined West didn't produce a statesman in, wow, in 30 years at least. So there you go. We see this result. So, and this is what I wanted to tell you today, guys. And in conclusion, as always, I want to express a profound gratitude to my wonderful patrons. And as always, those who like what I do, please subscribe to my channel. And those who can afford, please support me on Patreon or buy me a coffee too. And, have a nice rest of the week. And I'll talk to you later, guys. Bye-bye.